Okay, doing a test review of IBUS 75, test number 3. There's a couple of things on here that we don't have in our new textbook yet, or on the website. So we're gonna let you just look it up on the internet. So it's like a take-home exam. I appreciate your patience. You know, our whole objective this semester was to create a free textbook, and we're just getting caught up with updating current material to fill in all the blanks so that as we move forward each semester that the information is current and complete and, more importantly, free. Okay, number 1. I think we've talked earlier about that supply chain and logistics are affected by the business around them, and that includes politics, economic issues like trade policies, and all of that's kind of linked to politics. You want to make sure you're comfortable with that. A lot about Russia in the news recently, and you may remember several years back, Russia invaded Crimea, and the relationship between Russia and Ukraine is kind of significant. And if I were to have a question on that that has something to do with the transportation link between Russia and Ukraine, you want to kind of look that up. The expansion of the Panama Canal, the question is, does it affect the Port of Long Beach? You might want to look that one up too. So there's 2 points of view on that. Let's see, number 4 has to do with container vessel sizes. You can figure that out. Number 5 has to do with the elements that are involved in international logistics. HR, by the way, stands for Human Resources. Number 6 is self-explanatory. It's why is LA Long Beach important? Number 7 has to do with international labor costs and its impact on supply chain and logistics. If you take a look down at the Port of LA and Long Beach, you can see all these big ships with all these containers on it. And you need to think about how else would cargo get into this country if it wasn't through those ships? And what are those alternatives? I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to mention it again. When you look at a business's organizationally, there's a bunch of functions, and the biggest function that I bias towards is marketing. That's where you create products that you sell to customers, and when customers buy those products, you then have to produce them, you have to transport them, you need to deliver them to the consumer. That whole element, marketing is the overriding organizational position. Supply chain is a subset of marketing. Historically, they would view it as part of operations, but in my world, it's part of marketing because it affects the customer, that order to the customer, and logistics is the physical movement of the products that supply chain and marketing creates. Underneath logistics, you have ocean transportation, air transportation, truck transportation, rail transportation, warehousing, the physical elements of the asset-driven physical elements. There's a great section I know we have on the website on demand planning, and the key to logistics these days, today, is about planning your demand, because you can adjust. You have these adaptive logistics networks, and they can adapt if you've got a good handle on what your demand is. Okay, number 14. On my face-to-face class, we go through this. I have a demonstration of why this happens. But the issue is, you may have picked up in the news recently ships that have sunk in the ocean. I think we gave you a clip on the Puerto Rican vessel, right? We sent you a link on that issue. So if the ship, and the way they measure a ship's stability being the ability of the ship to right itself once it's been inclined. So as an example, if I take it and I just push it over and I let go of it, does it have the ability to right itself? If I'm out in the ocean and a wave pushes it over, does it have the ability to right itself? That's the term stability. That's what that means. The question is, if it's stable at the dock, in other words, when it leaves the dock, is it as stable as it is at sea? Is that the same? Well, the answer to that is you need to consider that there's changes in the stability while it's on its voyage. As an example, the lower tanks on a ship, that ship in Puerto Rico as an example, has bunker fuel in it. It's a diesel engine, but this happened to be a steam turbine. It has bunker fuel, which is very heavy oil. It's almost like asphalt. And they keep it in the lower tanks as what's called ballast, and it helps keep weight down so that the ship has the ability to right itself. And as you burn that bunker fuel, you don't put water back in there because it'll screw up the tanks. So that then changes the stability while it's at sea. That's another good one. Again, this is my personal view, which I happen to believe is right. The way you treat labor should not be defined by their role and how you pay them. So at Long Beach City College, as an example, you could have a full-time janitor and you could have a part-time faculty member, somebody like me. We both have different roles, but we both should be treated similarly. And particularly in the warehousing business, where 75% of the labor is temporary, when you treat it separately, you cost you productivity. And the advantage of temporary workforces is your workflow goes up and down based on customer orders from day to day. You're able then to scale your work order. Restaurants do this all the time. If they think they're going to have a slow night, or they're having a slow night, they'll send some people home, or they'll order more people in if they happen to have a big night. When we talk about logistics, we talk about the physical movement of freight, and the key part of the physical movement of freight is the asset. That would be a ship, an airplane, a truck, a warehouse, a rail car, or rail infrastructure. It used to be that those were all you dealt with. You just dealt with those assets and whatever the most efficient way to run that asset. The way it operates today, it's these processes where they interface with each other is a key part now of the logistics networks. And getting those processed where you have these interfaces is crucial to getting your overall cost and your service up and your cost down. To that end, Walmart's a great example of this. They're a great logistics company. They're constantly reassessing what they're doing and trying to improve it to keep their costs down. Yeah, that's another good one. Many logistics companies use financial statements in order to evaluate their operations. That is a flawed management practice. Highly flawed management practice. Extremely highly flawed management practice. You want operating metrics to measure your productivity and your performance, not financial measures. If you have the right operating metrics in place, you will know what your financials are going to be. In the businesses that we've ran, when the financial people come in, I have a number written down and their number better be close to mine because we are measuring this to 9 decimal points on operating metrics. Number 20, everything, including logistics, should start with the customer's requirement. You start with the customer and you work backwards. You don't start with, I've got a ship, I got a truck, I got a warehouse, I got to go find a customer. You start with the customer and then work backwards. Okay? Thanks for that. Should take care of test number 3.